My name is Hannah Collins, and I was 35 years old when I learned that my family had spent my inheritance. I stood on the main street of Blackwood Creek, Wisconsin, holding a duffel bag, staring at a sign that wasn't there when I left. Black lacquered letters, a new awning, warm light glowing from the lamps inside, and my grandmother's name, Martha's Kitchen, right above the door of a restaurant that now belonged to my sister. My grandmother Martha had left me her lake house, $480,000 market value, a pine forest, the shore where I grew up. My name was written in the will clearly, without ambiguity. My parents sold the house. My sister used the money to open the restaurant, and then she sent me a text, "Thank you for your service." I didn't reply to anyone. Instead, I spent a year and a half of my life and every dollar I had. And it all ended in a Hudson County courtroom when my sister couldn't stand up from her chair. If you've ever felt like your family made all the decisions for you, stay. This story is about that. From Fort Bragg to Blackwood Creek, it's almost 900 kilometers. 11 hours, if you don't stop. I drove at night, because at night no one asks unnecessary questions. I was an Army medic, 12 years of service moving from private to sergeant. The Army breaks you in a very specific way. You start automatically counting other people's breaths. Cashiers, drunk people, parents, any conversation, and part of my brain is already counting inhalations. I had a bag, a pair of boots that had been through 2 combat zones, and a small brass key on a chain. My grandmother sent it to me in Afghanistan when I was 28 with a note inside the envelope, in case you get tired of being needed by everyone. I laughed back then, but I kept the key. Here is the simple arithmetic of my family. 12 years of service, $400 every month without fail for my mother's medicine, my father's roof, my sister's stove. I never asked for anything in return. A person who asks for nothing isn't necessarily generous. Sometimes they are just very far away. I arrived at 6:20 in the morning. Where the old video rental shop used to be, there was now an expensive restaurant. And in the window, a photograph of my grandmother that I had taken myself. Now she was selling breakfasts. The renovation cost at least $300,000. My sister Bethany never had that kind of money. It all started a year ago when I was at a base in Germany. My sister sent a photo of the construction with the caption, "Opening soon." Named it after Grandma. "Wish you were here." I asked, "Where did the money come from?" After a long pause with 3 typing dots, the reply came, "Thank you for your service." She wasn't mocking me. She genuinely believed that the family had the right to use what was sitting idle. My parents greeted me as if I were a guest. Father brought out a folder with documents. On page 3 it read, "Property sale, $480,000. On page 5, "Caretaking and expenses compensation, $140,000. And the rest, $340,000, went as an investment in Bethany's family business." And most importantly, consent to the transaction signed. Daniel Collins, by power of attorney for Hannah Collins. I had signed that power of attorney before my last deployment abroad so my father could pay my taxes if something happened to me. "You sent money, but I changed her diapers and lived with her in her final years," my father said calmly in the garage. "The one who stays gets the property. The one who leaves gets the memories." He handed me a check for $70,000 and a waiver releasing them from any claims. "Your share of the net balance. Sign it." I didn't take the check. I hired a lawyer named Elizabeth Harper. Her office was above an old pharmacy. On her desk sat a mug that read, "I argue with people for money. Sometimes I even win." "You won't get the house back, Hannah," she said right away. "The buyer acted in good faith, and the deal is registered. The court won't take the land away from them. But your money leaves a paper trail. Your father had power of attorney, but power of attorney gives the right to act in your best interests, not to dispose of your inheritance for the benefit of third parties. That is called a breach of fiduciary duty. Your father sold property that your grandmother willed directly to you and transferred your money to your sister. That is a direct violation." Over the next 14 months, a quiet war began. I stayed in town, rented a room above a store, and looked at the Martha's Kitchen sign every evening. Bethany came to see me one evening in a stained apron. "Are you really going to ruin everything?" she asked. "I was here. when Grandma fell, when Mom cried, and you were always somewhere else. You could have called me and asked before taking $340,000, I answered quietly. Father said you agreed to everything, she snapped. But for the first time, fear flashed in her eyes. She hadn't even checked. It was just convenient for her to believe it. The hardest day came in January. Everyone was sitting in the Hudson County courtroom. My father, mother, Bethany, and my 16-year-old niece Emma. My father had aged 10 years over those months. My father's lawyer built his defense on emotions. Mr. Collins cared for sick family members. He acted in what he believed was the best interest of preserving family well-being while his eldest daughter was overseas. Father took the witness stand. I thought I was doing the right thing. We are one family. Elizabeth stood up. Mr. Collins, did you notify Hannah about the sale of the house before completing the transaction? No. Did you transfer $340,000 from her inheritance to your second daughter's account without Hannah's written consent? I thought Hannah wouldn't mind. At that moment, the game was over. The judge read the verdict in a dry tone. Recognize the actions of Daniel Collins as an abuse of power under attorney authorization and a breach of fiduciary duty. Order the defendants to return to Hannah Collins the full amount of withheld funds, $410,000, taking into account deductions for confirmed medical expenses. Dead silence fell over the room. My father and sister did not have $400,000 in cash. Everything was built into the walls of the restaurant. My sister went pale. It meant bankruptcy and an auction. Then Elizabeth voiced the settlement agreement we had prepared in advance. To avoid forced liquidation of assets and family bankruptcy, the plaintiff proposes transferring 100% ownership interest in the Martha's Kitchen restaurant to Hannah Collins to settle the awarded debt. Bethany couldn't get up from her chair. She looked at me, unable to believe that the business she thought was hers had just officially become mine. I didn't close the restaurant. I kept all 16 employees, cooks, waiters, dishwashers. They weren't to blame for my family's lies. But I didn't manage it myself either. I hired a professional manager and offered my sister the chance to stay on as head chef on a salary. For the first time in my life, I was setting the terms. She refused and left, but 6 months later she returned. Without anger, just tired. She brought an old box with grandmother's recipes and a note she found in her things. Home isn't walls. Home is the place where people stop running away from each other. I took down the gold sign with my grandmother's name. In its place, a new one appeared. The corner table. No family names. No past. No debts. And that brass key? I put it on the shelf near the register. I was 35 years old when I lost the lake house. But that was when I first found my boundaries. I lost my family in its habitual, parasitic form, but I gained the chance to build a life where I am loved not because I am convenient and send money, but simply because I exist. If you've ever felt like you give everything and still get blamed, remember, sometimes the only way to stop people who are used to taking is to finally stop giving.